Hello and welcome to the Drummergy Podcast. Yes, the Drummergy Podcast, episode 130. Do you say 130 or is it 130? I think it's 130 is the proper way to say the number. I believe that's the case. So, yes, lots of episodes going on. Today is June 10th of 2025. And today's topic is going to be about inspiration and how long does it last when you get inspired by something? Is it you hear something or read something and you go, wow, I really, really like that. And then a few minutes later that thought leaves you and it's just back to normal? Or is it something so profound that it really makes an impression on you to take action to do different things? So I'll be curious to see what everybody has to say about that. I've had some moments in the last few days that were really inspiring and motivating, and we'll talk about that here shortly. Jim Reidenboss here. Good morning, my friend. You got your coffee? I do. I will be getting more of these Drummergy coffee mugs or tumblers. I don't know I don't want to. Mary would know what these are actually. I think they're tumblers, but this particular one really keeps things hot for a long time and cold also. If you have an iced coffee or water or whatever, it'll keep it cold for a really long time. It's a really good mug. So I'm going to get some more of these. I'll have them available for sale in the near future. And I think we're going to get some t-shirts made and those kind of things, along with more Fred Rock School of Drumming merch is coming. So more merch for Fred Rock School of Drumming and the Drummergy Podcast here. So cool stuff going on. Today is my good friend Anthony Fagiano's birthday. My birthday was on the 7th. Anthony's is on the 10th. And being that we've both been in midline for an eternity, a lot of times over the decades, we have celebrated our birthday together. Not this year, but yeah, I think of anybody that I've spent time on stage with, Anthony Fagiano is somebody that I've spent time on stage with the most and traveled with the most. Friendships that last a long, long time, a lot of stuff about each other. So happy birthday to Anthony. If you guys want to send Anthony a little happy birthday thing, today's the day to do that. Today is also National Black Cow Day, because I like to go over the weird holidays. Well, that's one of them. And speaking of cold drinks, today is National Iced Tea Day. I love iced tea. No sugar, no lemon, just plain boring iced tea. I really, really like it. Mary will make a gallon or two of that if we have a party at our house and have family over. And so then we go through this period where we'll drink a lot of iced tea. Had iced tea growing up. My grandma always made iced tea. However, when we were younger, we did put sugar in our tea until my dad said, no more. You're not doing that. So we kind of went through this phase of transitioning from having sugar in our tea to not. And now, man, this has been the case for a long time. If I drink tea that has sugar in it, my face wants to turn inside out. It's just way too much. I can't handle it. So no sugar, no lemon, just good old delicious iced tea. That's it. That's what I like. So let's see what else is going on. Last week I had on the show Kenny Sherritt's, world-renowned drum tech, and it was a really great interview. But I don't know, we had a sound issue going on, and I don't believe we have a sound issue today. I'm going to put on my headphones for one moment here and check. Hello. See, there's no noise coming from this broadcast. Last week, And Kenny and I were trying to solve this problem before we went on air, and we just couldn't do it. And I'm like, we gotta, the show has to go on. So, but it sounded like a fax machine running in the background, and it was a little distracting at first, but I think once we got talking, it wasn't so bad. James Harrison says it sounds good today. Thanks, James. I have a feeling it was on Kenny's end. Now, Kenny, if you see this, I'm not blaming you, my friend, but before Kenny and I went live, he had some sound effects that he was showing me that he could do, where it sounded like he was in a giant hall with all this reverb and stuff. And I'm not sure if he quite got that all the way off, because when I went back and started listening to some of it, when I, especially with headphones on, and I said something, you could hear this milliseconds of like huge echo, and then it would like clip or be gone or something. So what we're hoping to do is when Mary has time. Mary's time is it's been pretty short lately, but we want to take the audio from that and see if we can run it through our recording software and see if we can try to mitigate some of that noise and then reload it to YouTube, because it was fun having him on the show, and it was distracting, the sound. So anyway, we're going to try to see what we can do magically. I say we, meaning her. She'll be the one taking care of that. So this past weekend, we took our son Ian down to Ogden, Utah, and dropped him off for drum corps spring training. And we have a Honda Odyssey. I think it's a 2002. I can never remember if our car is a 2002 or a 2003. It doesn't really matter, because when I have to do any maintenance or anything on it, it doesn't matter if it's an 02 or 03. The parts and such they're the same. They're the same. So I think it's an 02. We bought that car with I think Mary remembers 142,000 miles on it. We had a Chevy Suburban before that, which we loved the Suburban, but somehow it just was plagued with mechanical issues, and that was a drag. I don't like being a mechanic, but like the air conditioner finally went out in it, and then somewhere along the lines the transmission went out. We had the transmission replaced, and then a few years down the road the transmission went out again, and we just sold it to Jalopy Jungle, or whatever it's called these days. We sold it to the wrecking yard. Got the Honda Odyssey. It has been a great car. On our way back from Ogden, Utah, out here in the desert, as you get close to my house, we hit 300,000 miles on the old odometer there, and she's still running great. So really great car, that Honda. I think there was a period of time in the Honda Odysseys where the transmission, they had some issues. We do not have that. We're not in that category. So we're safe as kittens for now anyway. So we took down Ian and dropped him off for drum corps, and Mary had tried doing some fundraiser things online for him because we were a little short. Tuition went up about $1,200 or so for this season. So last year it was close to $4,000 to do it, and this year it's like $5,000. I think, if I have that right. If the producer comes on, she'll straighten me out. You guys know this. she'll fix me. But I think that's the case. It was closer to $4,000 last year, closer to $5,000 this year, plus all the travel back and forth for rehearsal camps and auditions and clinics and things like that adds up pretty quick. All that to be said, Mary tried a couple different fundraiser things with, is it 3,800 this year, Mary, or was that last year? I can't remember. Regardless of what the actual amount is, I think it's about $1,000 more this year than it was the previous year. Yeah, it went from 3,800 to 4,800. So says the girl with her finger on the pulse. But I think Facebook was squashing these fundraiser things, and so they weren't really getting any results. And then so Mary did the GoFundMe thing, which GoFundMe takes a certain percentage out of that. So she was trying to avoid that. But then she put that together, and GoFundMe paused it, saying something along the lines of like they wanted to check and make sure this was like a legitimate thing. So anyway, it was like really stressful. But fortunately, we found out yesterday that Ian got a scholarship towards his tuition from Battalion. And so that's a big, a big relief right there. So I think that we're cool with that. If not, Mary can say, yeah, we might need a little bit more, because we're also kind of getting to the tail end of my financial commitments to my broken leg. At least as far as we know, we're getting that. Connor Hensley says that's so awesome. Go Ian. Yeah, man, he's going to be out there, and yes, I will be going back to Indianapolis in August to see the finals. And no, I won't be riding a scooter. That I think that joke is gonna remain with me for an eternity, to stay off of scooters. Yes, I mean, unless it was a life and death situation, I'm probably not going to get on a scooter. So the risk is not worth it. And you guys know that I was not being reckless when that happened at all. It was just a set of really unfortunate circumstances that happened. Man, sometimes it's hard to get words out. So took Ian, dropped him off, and the CEO of Battalion, they had a core meeting that Mary and I and some other parents also sat through. Like the director had some stuff to say about rules and things where if you guys don't, okay, back up a couple steps. If you're not aware what drum corps is, it's like pro level marching band stuff. And they have all these groups all over the country, different levels of groups. And they could have a few hundred people that are traveling in this circus all over, performing and doing these shows. So, but they typically will stay at a school, like a high school or a junior high or something, and the whole corps sleeps on the gym floor. So imagine, like, I don't know, 150 or so performers all on air mattresses and all living together in a gymnasium. So it's an interesting thing to see. But at any rate, the corps director was going over rules about what they should or shouldn't do in the school. And then the CEO of Battalion got up there, and it was kind of like motivational speaking things to inspire the performers, the students, to do really well. Mary said there are no woodwinds, just brass percussion and color guard. Yes. Although sometimes these drum corps, you'll see like a saxophone feature now where they'll be up front. I mean, this activity, this sport keeps growing, and you see different things. Like a couple years ago, the troopers had an electric cello that they used. So they might use some of these instruments as like specialty features. But generally speaking, you're not going to see flutes and clarinets and things like that, saxophones marching on the field. Yeah, it's really fun and exciting to see all the work that goes into putting these shows together. So as I'm listening to the CEO of Battalion, I believe his name is Kenton, if I have that right. I think I have that right. He started talking, and in that moment, I felt really inspired about what he was talking about. And so my mind was kind of operating on two different levels. One, I started taking notes on my phone and trying to write down what he was saying. And at the same time, I was thinking about, I could probably talk about this on my show. And maybe we could all extract some fun things or some exciting, motivational, inspiring things from this that make you go, oh, I could do these things in my life and things would be better. Um, Maybe on a personal level or with your career or especially with music, because I'm all about the all about the music. Um, and so different thoughts are popping in my head as all of this was happening. And not long ago, I started reading a book called The 12-Week Year. And it's without getting too far into the book itself, it's basically a time management tool to help you get more things done in a shorter period of time. So basically equating like what takes most people an entire year to accomplish, then other people can do the same amount of work in 12 weeks. Well, if you do that 4 times, 12 weeks, 4 times in a year, that's 48 weeks. So you could be 4 times as productive throughout your year than you would over an entire year. But Fred, where's time for my family and time for me to sit and watch TV and whatever? I believe that there's still time for that. But I think, and I'm believe me, I'm very guilty of this myself, where, you can go on to check your social media, which I'm saying you shouldn't not do that. But, uh-oh, I shook my phone. I hope it didn't erase. Nope, it didn't. You know how you could take your phone and shake it and it erases everything well, I picked up my phone and I shook it and all the text that I had disappeared and I went back and it restored it. So I won't shake my phone. But if you jump on Facebook or whatever to look at something, you just think, oh, it's just going to be a few minutes. Well, then 45 minutes later or an hour later, you haven't really done much. Which the other side of that coin is I think that social media is important to my business model of what I do with teaching and recording and playing and anything that involves music. I believe social media is an important tool for that. But what I'm getting at is that we can obviously spend more time than necessary on there. Sans this show, like this show should be really important to everybody to watch. So make sure you carve out time in your schedule for that. Going back to the book, because sometimes I get a little sidetracked. The book starts with this really inspirational quote from Henry Ford that said, you can't build a reputation off of things that you're going to do. And that's another thing that I used to be I would say that I'm not out of the woods completely on this, but I get excited about the possibility of things that I want to do with my life and with drumming. And because I get excited about that, then I start telling people all these things. Well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to and I'm going to and I'm going to. And it's like, of all those things that I said I'm going to do, how many did I actually do? Because then if you run across the paths of some of these people that you said, I was going to do this, and they say, well, how is it going with whatever I told them? And you're like, that fell through or whatever the case may be. I'm not saying that you shouldn't tell anybody about things that you're excited about and things that you're going to do, but you just really can't build your business or your reputation off of things that you're going to do. So that quote from Henry Ford, really made an impression on me when I started reading that book, The 12-Week Year. And Mary and I try to have some kind of a business meeting with some regularity to it. It doesn't always work out. And sometimes we have these gaps that get too big in between our business meeting. And then we go back and we start going through our list. Well, we didn't do, and we didn't do, and we didn't, and trying to refocus. But if you can make those lists and stick to those lists and get things done, then you're accomplishing your tasks and you're making some headway and moving forward with what your goals are. So going back to Battalion, and I think this is true with a lot of business models. A lot of businesses would have a mission statement, like a 1 or 2 sentence thing that said, this is what we're about. that kind of evolved into companies having a list of core values. And if you don't meet those core values for the business, then you're going to have a rough time being employed there and are probably not a good fit to be there. So when, like, my neighbor who's got a pretty successful business told me, he was like, it makes it easier to hire and fire people because it takes a lot of emotion, so to speak, out of what's expected, because, hey, here's our core values. Do you check all these boxes? Well, if you don't, then maybe you need to go find somewhere else that you can check those core value boxes. So the CEO of Battalion had 4 core values that he brought up, and I wanted to go over with them because I think they're really inspirational. But as I'm going through these, if you have something to interject with, then by all means tell me, and let's talk about it, because we want to be live and interactive, right? And so David Fix is here. David said, well, let's put his comment up here. David Fix is the drummer for the band Epic Union here in Boise. He says, after several years, I became a little better at predicting what I'll really do, but I still have to watch my productivity to be overly optimistic. Did I read that right? I think he meant but I still have to watch my productivity to be overly optimistic. Yeah, man. All right. So one question that gets asked, I've been asked this a lot. Mary's been asked this. Our son Christian has proclivity. I don't know the meaning of that word, Dave. I'm going to have to look it up. I am not the all-knowing Fred Fisher. But let's help out our viewers who probably already know what this word means. A tendency to choose or do something regularly, an inclination or predisposition toward a particular thing. There you go. There you go. Thanks, Dave. And look, see, I'm willing to admit I don't know what I'm reading here, so let's figure this out. Which, side note about meanings of words, we used to have to pick up this book called the dictionary and look through it. Now we can just Google it. So cool. Okay, the 4 core values. Let's get started on those from Battalion. Oh, now I remember what I was going to say. People ask all the time, like, what is the purpose of doing drum corps? Like, how does that help you for the future? Like, what do you do with that when it's over? Because you're not really getting a job necessarily in playing in marching bands, and that's your career, because you age out at 21. Like, once you turn 21, that's it. You age out. So, well, what do you do with yourself? So that was one thing that the CEO Kenton started to ask everybody, because you do all this work to learn your instrument and to perform music and learn these drills and move on the field and all of that thing. Like that's what you do to accomplish those tasks. But the number one goal, or the number one core value, was to become exceptional human beings. Like, what kind of person do you become as a result of doing all this hard work? Because they rehearse 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. They do all this traveling, and they go all over the country, and they do all this performance. And it's a very rigorous schedule, and it can be very hard on your body, and it's very demanding of your time and effort. But how does that commitment to that thing affect you going forward in whatever career that it is? Now, there's some other components to this that you'll see, that's how this moves forward. But the number one thing is to become exceptional human beings. So Are you becoming an exceptional human being at whatever it is that you do? Now, obviously, over the couple years I've done this now, 2 years, a little over 2 years, I've been pretty forward with sharing my opinions on things about how bands should do stuff or what I think bands should do. Those are my opinions. Um, two that pop in my head is I really um, think that you should look like you belong on stage and ditch the iPad, like commit to learning the music. Um, but that's all just like Fred thoughts. But what are we all doing in whatever capacity to be exceptional human beings? And so when he said that, then my mind immediately went to a bunch of different things. Like, what am I doing myself? Like, I teach drum lessons for a living, and I uh, have a little fluctuation in my schedule. I had 46, almost 47 students. Then I have some students taking time off from the summers. I'm not sure where I'm landing exactly, a little over 40 students. But I have 40 some different people come through this door every week and sit here, and they all have things going on in their lives, and some of them are great, some of them not so much. And so not only am I a drum teacher, but I find myself sort of being a psychiatrist, I guess, if you will, or a counselor. Fred, what should I do about whatever? So those kind of things. It's like, how are you contributing to society to be an exceptional human being? And in our current culture, there is so many people that are they're offended by everything. They want to plant their flag on whatever their opinion or feeling is. And I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I stay completely out of that. But obviously I'm aware my head's not in the sand. I'm looking around and witnessing this. And there is a lot of ugliness that happens, regardless of whatever your beliefs are or your feelings about things, or are you extremely conservative or extremely liberal or whatever that is. Can we all just be exceptional human beings? And so that was his big point there. Jamie Vink is here. Let's put up Jamie's comment. And Jamie, thanks for hanging out, man. There are opportunities around every corner. You will fail at some of them, but if you learn what was wrong about it and what adjustment can be made, then it's not a fail. You may not get to work with that artist again, but you have to take the lesson. Yep. There's always lessons to be learned in everything that we do. Like, well, one thing to springboard off of failure is, some people fail at things and then they go, I'm never gonna do what that guy did, or they get there's all this emotion into that, instead of looking yourself in the mirror and saying, what was the thing with that? Did I do everything in my power to be prepared and to be that exceptional human being to make that a success? Or did I, whatever the case was, you like evaluate that. So when the next opportunity comes along, that you can go, aha, I'm not going to do these things again. I'm going to do these other things better. Jared Halleck is here. I'll talk about Jared more towards the end of the show, but Jared will be my guest on the show next week. If you don't know Jared, go follow him on TikTok or Instagram or here on Facebook. Lots of cool drumming stuff there. He has a whole Jared Halleck community on Discord, and just, it's a really cool thing that he's going on. So we're going to dive deep into that. All right, so the number one core value with the battalion was be exceptional human beings. So let's see. Number 2. Its name, number 2. The number 2 thing that Kenton said is, I mean, these are all inspiring things. For me, they're inspiring things. He said, the difficult we do immediately. So the difficult things, do them right now. And then the impossible takes a little longer. I think I saw this when I was the drumline coach at Mountain View High School. I see this with some of my own students. I see this with drum corps. People are capable of doing way more things than they think they're capable of doing. You're capable of much more strenuous physical things that are demanding of your body than you think that you are. You are capable of doing things if you're willing to work through them, practice them to accomplish them. One thing that I say, I correct my students on immediately when I hear them say the words, I can't. Can you play this thing? I can't. Yes, you can. Maybe you can't yet, but you're not giving it any time to develop it, to work on it, to accomplish it, to do those things. I think when we think of the things that we should do immediately, I think generally speaking, we get lazy. We don't want to do something, so we'll find excuses not to do them. Guilty as charged. Sometimes I want to just lay on the couch and not do anything. And guess what happens? Nothing gets done. And the producer is probably going to use that against me immediately. Not that she's using it against me, but just to remind me, like, oh, what are you accomplishing? What did he? I got to reread it. The difficult we do immediately, the impossible takes a little longer. So in essence, it means that nothing is impossible. Start doing the difficult things right now. Don't put those off. Get it done. My dad is really good about getting things done immediately and not like things build up into a huge thing that you got to deal with suddenly. It's well, like, we tried having a garden once, and the space for the garden still exists, but it's just this patch of dirt. Well, if I don't stay up on the weeding of that garden, keeping that clear, it quickly becomes a huge chore that can take hours to deal with. But if I go out there every week and I get all the little weeds that pop up, it takes just minutes. So it doesn't build up into this thing. So that's an example of, like, take care of stuff right now, get it done. And I think that also falls in line with that book, The 12-Week Year. It's time management thing and getting things done and taken care of. Now, I don't think that you need to be inspired or constantly read a book to find motivation to do normal everyday tasks. I remember it's been a long time ago now. My dad said something to the effect, if you want to turn on the light, just turn on the light. You don't need to read a book about it. Just do it. Just do it. Now, that seems silly and simple, but it's like, if you want a clean house, then just clean your house. Like, do you really have to you know what needs to be done? But I think reading a book about how to clean your house is a distraction from you cleaning your house. Like, just clean your house and then maintain, like try to stay up on top of that. 6 people living here in our house, dishes can pile up really, really fast, and then somebody has to deal with that. Well, do you want to spend all day cleaning the kitchen? Or if everybody just cleaned their dishes as they brought them in, then there's never this huge mountain of things to do. It's just always maintained and done. We're trying. Okay. The Fishers are not perfect. You would know it if we were. You would know it if we were perfect. So yeah, do the difficult things immediately, and the impossible takes a little longer. So that was the number 2 core value. Let's see, number 3 that he said is the core belongs to us because we belong to the core and have the experience that you deserve. The core belongs to us because we belong to the core. So it's having ownership within whatever it is that you're involved with. This might go back to what Jamie was talking about. Like if you had an opportunity, let's see if I reread Jamie's comment. I'm going to put Jamie's comment back up there so that you guys can all follow along. Okay, Jamie again said, there are opportunities around every corner. You will fail at some of them, but if you learn from what was wrong about it and what adjustment can be made, then it's not a fail. You may not get to work with that artist again, but you have to take the lesson. Okay, so when the core belongs to me, or the core belongs to us because we belong to the core, that's kind of one of those all for one for all type of statements. It's having ownership and knowing what your part in is to make that thing great, because you belong to it and it belongs to you. There's an exchange there. So James Harrison, my buddy James, says drum corps builds character and teaches teamwork, time management, pulling your weight, responsibilities, competitive spirit, and respect for your competition. Oftentimes when drum corps members come back home, they have a difficult time adjusting to their high school or college band's relaxed schedule and attitudes. Yes, 100%. I agree with everything that James just said there. So, just like James said, drum corps instills in these people a way of thinking, a mindset, and there's a schedule. There's things that have to be accomplished, and they're very, very good at that. And I would say most of these groups operate in a very similar way. And I think each of those groups are going to have little tiny differences in how they do things, but by and large, I think they do things very similarly. The core belongs to us because we belong to the core. And that doesn't just apply to marching band. It's like, for example, midline for me. I belong to midline because midline belongs to me. And I think everybody in the band feels that same way. And it's a willingness to do your part to make things better, to accomplish things that you're working on, that you're trying to do, and trying to just be the best at what that is. So I found that was a very inspiring, like, member of the team moment is doing your part. So that was the third thing. Number 4, he said, line it up. Mary says he was saying if you're not happy with something that is happening, you have the responsibility to fix it and make it better. Yeah. So in addition to the things that are going great, there are things that happen that come along that are challenges. And if there are challenges or things that are happening that you don't feel like are jiving necessarily, then you have a responsibility to take that action and solve problems. There's always going to be problems that need to be solved. And maybe that also goes along with do the difficult things now. So sometimes it's difficult to raise your hand and say, excuse me, this is going on, and is there a resolution here? So yeah, you gotta have those things too to be able to work out. Sorry, let me get a drink here. And then the last thing that he that he talked about, the number 4, the fourth core, was line it up. So I think this goes through with being disciplined and having a routine to what you do, a mode of operations, if you will. So one thing that he said, now this stuck out to me a long time ago when we first started getting involved with drum corps, was the commitment to, well, let's just take their water jugs, for example. Every performer has to have a 1-gallon water jug, and they all had to be the same and the same color. So they all had 1-gallon, I think, Coleman brand red jugs. And not only did they have those red jugs, but they were, when the section, of course, we were paying attention to drumline at that time really close, is they all had their water jugs on the ground, all faced exactly the same direction. Their handles all turned the same way. And that made an impression on me. It was like, so going back to what James said, the relaxed schedule or attitude in your high school marching band or even college was this attitude that none of that matters. But it was like an attention to detail thing that I noticed. And so when Kenton was talking, he said there are thousands of items to take care of, logistics, attention to details, like line it up, like physically. So he mentioned, so as the members were showing up and checking in, at one point they have like this semi-truck trailer full of their equipment. So all the kids were going out and grabbing their instruments and bringing them in and lining them up in the hallway. So when you saw all the contra tubas, because that's what Ian's playing, all lined up down the hall, they're all meticulously lined up. They're all exactly the same. They're all spaced exactly the same distance from each other. The handle on the top are all turned a certain direction. It's very uniform in how they do that, but they train them to do that, to have that attention to detail. Now, I think about that with my bands that I've traveled with. Like, is there a routine to the packing order? Is there a routine to my personal gear that I'm taking care of? And then all of that is collectively put into a trailer or something like that, or the back of a car or whatever. And you don't want to miss anything. You don't want to leave anything behind. A lot of bands have what they call the dummy check, is even after you're all done with that, you go back in the venue and you check the stage and you check the wings of the stage, you check backstage to make sure nothing got left behind. Did you leave all your t-shirts upstairs at the merch table? Did those get loaded? Battery packs, whatever that might be. So think about, 150 some people performing on the stage, plus all the teaching staff and volunteers. I mean, easily got 200 people traveling in this thing, and everybody's got to take care of stuff. So they're all very meticulous in how this goes. Mary says, yes, all instruments, cases, bags, jugs, etc. need to be lined up exactly to each other, handles facing the same direction. And then James says, precision matters in drum corps. Instilling that mindset transfers to your attitude. Yeah, so that all ties back to being exceptional human beings, because Kenton said, like, all these things that they're doing, learning their instrument. Like, if you're a marching snare drum player, when you age out, it's highly unlikely that you're going to put that drum on again and march on a field. That's one of those things, like, there's a shelf life of that that experience, right? And then it's over. But now what? Well, in the mix of all that thing, you've learned this discipline, and this mindset, like James said, the mindset transfers to your attitude. So through all that, are you becoming exceptional human beings? I think more often than not, that is the case. When anytime I've come across somebody who was a former DCI, Drum Corps International, or WGI, Winter Guard International person, there's a certain thing about them that's different from other people because they've had that experience, that intensity to what they were doing. Yeah, and I saw it too, especially when I was working at Mountain View High School and, witnessing my son going and doing drum corps and coming back, and I myself seeing how that whole thing ran and the efficiency in all of that, and then you come back. Now, I'm not throwing high school band directors under the bus, okay? Because it might seem like that, but I'm not. I think a high school band director has so many different worlds all converging at once, and they just want to survive, some of them. But you bring these way of doing things back to that, and there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of pushback on that. Not that you have to be so militant about things, but I think there's some things that, some of these high schools would benefit from greatly. Now, a side note to that too is when you start getting into bigger cities, sometimes these high school band directors are also marching or drum corps directors too, and you see this huge difference in how those programs are run versus what you might see here in the Treasure Valley. Big difference. Mary says most of them will not go on to become music majors. Nope, it's just an activity that they're doing while they're young, and then they're done. But I think that whole experience, just like what James is talking about, should hopefully carry over into your life, like your personal things that you deal with, whatever job you go and do. I know that when I had my own landscape business, I had a handful of times where I'd have somebody work for me who had been or was in the military. And usually those people didn't stick around for very long because it was just a thing they needed to make money for a short period of time before they were on to the next thing. And those people that came and worked for me who were from the military, they had a go attitude. They could work all day shoveling or whatever was required of them without complaint, and they would do their thing, and they would get their paycheck when the payday was due, and they just had a certain mindset to that. And I think that is a lot of times the case with kids who have been in drum corps. I don't want to feel like I'm wandering too far away from inspiration and how long it lasts, but I was really inspired this past weekend listening to the CEO talk about these things. And as that was happening, I'm like, well, how can I apply these same things to my situation, to my life right now? So yeah, I'm feeling inspired, inspired by that. James Harrison says each show is judged for precision and musicality. They are trying to get into a mindset of performance mode in every repetition. Yes, so that's a great reminder, James, is that in rehearsal, Bart, my buddy Bart Robley is here. He is on tour right now with the Sam Morrison Band. Bart, are you in? I know you were like in Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota area. Are you still there? Or I think maybe I saw you were going to Ohio or Kentucky, or I don't know. I got to do my weekly Bart Robley research and see where Bart is. Okay, going back to James, is when they practice, they are practicing as if they were performing. Excuse me. So that's the same thing that I do as well. Now, I will tell you that Midline is really intense about those kind of things. Bart says he's in Wisconsin right now. Are you hopefully getting some cheese? Right now, he's getting something cheesy from me. When Midline puts a show together to perform, now we're in a small room, but we play as if we're performing because we want that to be we don't want to be thinking about that necessarily when we're performing. We want to put on a really great show because we always wanted that arena rock experience, or that attitude towards performing. So yeah, I'll be back there and I will play and I will spin sticks and move my arms as if I were on stage. And then that becomes my habit when I go to play. I don't sit here in the rehearsal room and play like this. I might if we're writing, like I'm really focusing on what I'm hearing. But once I have that established, then the animation comes back in. And so yeah, with drum corps, every time they repeat something, and it might be just a short little 8-bar piece of music, might even be 4, just this little thing, they do it over and over and over and over and over again. So they have this mindset for success because the stakes are high with scoring. Let's see what else was in Line It Up. Attention to details, line it up, physically lined up, the routine, development of the discipline, work through difficulties with each other, and how we do things matter. I think that was probably one of the bigger things that stuck out when he was talking about line it up, like how we do things matter. It seems inconsequential to have all the water jugs lined up perfectly and faced the same way, and the handles on the horn cases all put the same way. If you see the drum line, if they have their drums on a stand and their harnesses are right next to it, and everything, it's very uniform in how they do that. So if they're paying that close attention and detail to things that might seem like they're not a big deal, but they carry that forward to the stuff that is super important about what they do. I've watched, because we're drum corps parents, we see this happening before our very eyes, is like the respect for the uniform that they wear and what the rules are. Like, they can only be in uniform if they're doing these things, or if they're in uniform, they can only be doing. You just watch their whole demeanor change when they're in uniform. They're suddenly, I don't know, they're in gig mode or in game mode. I know for me, when I'm doing in a show and I put my stage clothes on, like I almost adopt a little bit of a different persona, if you will, because now I'm dressed to be on stage. It's not like I wore my flip-flops and cargo shorts to the gig and now I'm playing the gig in the same. No, that does not happen for me. I think it's really important. You look like you belong on stage. I mean, imagine the drum corps all together and they just wear whatever they felt like. It didn't matter. Like, the show would be ruined. They have to have their uniform on. I think it's really, really important that, let's see. One of the other things he said was be relentless in how you pursue this, because there was like some sideline. So that was the 4 things, to just recap. That was become an exceptional human being. The difficult things we do immediately. The impossible takes a little longer. The core belongs to us because we belong to the core, and then line it up. The routine and that development of that discipline. And then he talked about the Pareto principle, which I think the guys on the Drummers Education Connection have talked about before. It was, now I'm not an expert on this subject exactly, so forgive me if I get some of it wrong, but basically 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. So if you got 100% of an effort going to something, 20% of that thing is what it's causing you to have 80% of the success of whatever it is that you're doing. So when Kenton talked about the kids coming to drum corps, is that in their high school marching bands, or if they came from college or whatever, that those groups, those people were probably part of the 20% that were doing so much of the work to get 80% 80% of that results. So if you're taking that 20% of those kids, I call them kids, performers from the high schools and bringing them all together to the drum corps, well, now the drum corps is essentially made up of all those 20% of people. And so you would think that that would make it spectacular. And I think in a lot of ways it does, because you took all of those performers that had a better mindset of success or excellence and brought them all together. And it was so he said, all of you 20% wound up here for the commonality of a singular goal. And I thought that was pretty profound to think of it in those terms, that those 20% of hard workers from the high school marching bands ended up together in this one drum corps. That commonality brought them together for that singular goal. Like for battalion specifically, they're an open class corps with a goal in mind to become a world-class corps and to actually make it to the finals, which means you would be in the top 12 to perform it in Indianapolis. And last year was the farthest they had advanced in that goal, making it to the semifinals on Friday. So yeah, there's this, and it takes years for these things to happen. So it's pretty cool to the Fisher family witness how the battalion has grown, because we got involved in 2019 when that was Christian's first year. 2020 is like a blank space for so many people, but then back in 21, 22, aged out in 23. Ian went in for last year, and he's in again this year. Now, I don't know if Ian will continue on past this year. His drive to do this is different than what Christian's was. So I think a lot of it will determine what kind of experience he has this summer. But I really thought, as I was sitting there listening to Kenton talk, that was pretty inspirational. And so while he's talking and I'm writing this stuff down, things are popping into my head, like, how do I apply this to me in my situation right now? Because I'm not going to be in drum corps. That's not happening. But how can I take those concepts and those things and apply them to teaching whatever band I'm playing in? Am I being the best exceptional human being I can be to those around me? I think those are all really inspirational things. So, okay, but my question was, how long does inspiration last? I guess it lasts as long as we want it to. I think maybe how long inspiration lasts might tie into do the difficult things now and the impossible takes longer. It's like implementing those things right now and making that a habit, having that discipline and that routine of excellence. Anyway, got my mind going. It got my mind going. The producer says 2019 was the 4th season for Battalion on the field. Okay, so yeah, in the grand scheme of things, Battalion is still a fairly new drum corps, and they've been making huge strides forward, especially in the last few years. And it's really, really cool to see our kids be involved with that and part of the history making of everything. So, yeah, I think, did I miss anything? I don't think that I missed anything. So speaking of being exceptional human beings, I will also be on the Drummers Education Connection podcast today. It's currently 8:00 straight up for Mountain Time. So I've got 9, 10, 11. I've got 4 hours until I'm on the deck show, which We'll be broadcasting on Facebook and YouTube as well. So that'll be noon here for us in Idaho and 11 a.m. for Pacific time zone. So we're going to talk. I'm going to be on the show with Jeremy Steinkohler and Chip Ritter. Bart, who would normally be on there, is on tour with his band at the moment. And I don't think that Rick is going to be on, but we're going to be talking about adversity, overcoming adversity. And I think probably going to be heavily related to me coming back from breaking my leg. Eric, good morning to you. And also this week, I've got 4 shows this week. Tomorrow night with Cliff Miller at Emmett Cherry Festival. Then Thursday with Cliff Miller at Indian Creek Plaza in Caldwell for Prime on the Plaza. I'm not clear if that's open to the public or if it's a private event, but I don't think they shoo anybody away if you're there to hang out and watch music. Friday night, I am playing with Gary Tackett and the Eric Clapton tribute band Crossroads. That's going to be at Indian Creek Winery in Kuna. I haven't actually spoken to Gary. He texted me yesterday, call times, like sound check and load in and show time. But I thought I saw that it was close to being sold out, that event. I don't know anything other than that. And then Saturday night, I'll be back with Cliff Miller doing a private event somewhere. I'm not sure where, if it's near Boise. Anyway, so 4 in a row. There we go. Thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Next week, I'll have Jared Halleck on the show, and I think we're going to do some giveaways. Maybe a few pairs of sticks. I think Jared's got some stuff that he wants to... we're going to try to figure out how to do some kind of raffle thing. I got to get Jared on the phone and figure out what our plan of attack will be. But it's going to be it's going to be a cool show. And then the following week, I'm going to have Matt Vanderbo on, and we're going to talk about music sync licensing for film and TV. And that's going to be a great one too. So thanks for hanging out. Go take this inspiration, if there was any inspiration from this, and apply it. Go be an exceptional human being and hopefully inspire others. There you go. That's your instructions that's your marching orders. I'm going to go put my pickup back together. I had to put a new water pump in, and I didn't quite finish that yesterday. So I'm going to do that before the next podcast. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you. And hit like and subscribe on YouTube as well. That would be great. Thanks. We'll see you later. Bye.